Doomsday Vault Town warming faster than any other on Earth. In 2014, Mark Sabatini noticed cracks in his apartment walls. Then a mysterious Sabatini, the editor of A, was living in Longyearbyen, the world's northernmost town located just 800 miles from the North Pole, which is also the capital of a cluster of Norwegian islands called Svalbard. A landscape of jagged mountains, fjords, and glaciers, Svalbard, which experiences 4 months of darkness in winter, and 4 months of daylight in summer, is built on permanently frozen ground called permafrost. For years, permafrost provided a base as hard as concrete. But now it's melted. Sabatini says his building was damaged because it started sinking into the softening ground. Inger Hansen Bauer, senior researcher at the Norwegian Meteorological Institute and editor of About Svalbard, says the climate in Longyearbyen is probably warming faster than in any other town on Earth. That's because, according to Hansen Bauer, the annual mean temperature in Longyearbyen in 1900 was 7.8 C. Since then, the weather hasn't only got hotter, it's also got wetter. In the late 20th century, annual rainfall in Longyearbyen was about 200 mm 7.9 inches, says Hansen Bauer. But in the past decade, in spring 2017, Christiane loaded her seaside cabin onto a huge sled and moved it 80 meters 262 feet inland. The permafrost on the previous winter, high waves had washed away 13 meters 43 feet of shore in one day, she says. That left her cabin. Many of Longyearbyen's buildings are vulnerable because they are built on wooden pillars sunk into the permafrost. In the new climate, most dangerous of all, though, are the avalanches, which are more likely to occur with heavy rain and degraded permafrost. In December 2015, a fierce storm triggered an avalanche that sent snow, ice, and rocks hurtling down a mountain onto houses, killing a 42-year-old man and a 2-year-old girl. Christiane we. Statsbygg is building 60 apartments at a safe distance from the mountain slopes and assessing how many of its properties need to be torn down and replaced. For some, the construction of climate change-proof homes is not happening fast enough. Sabatini, the newspaper editor, had to leave his apartment in February 2016, after the city government ordered an immediate evacuation. He has not been able. Sabatini says that as a result of the destruction and evacuations, affordable. Just outside Longyearbyen is a building that must be protected at all costs. Often referred to as the Doomsday. The vault holds nearly 1 million packets of seeds originating from almost every country in the world, including everyday staples such as wheat and rice, as well as rare species such as the Svalbard. Haga says Longyearbyen is the perfect spot for the seed vault because the area is not prone to volcanoes or earthquakes, while the Norwegian political system is also extremely. The vault is set deep inside a mountain, looks a bit like the lair of a James Bond villain, and is accessed by a 120-meter 400 feet long tunnel. Due to the climate, but as soon as the seed bank opened, it became clear there were going to be problems. Typically, permafrost that is disturbed by construction work will refreeze over time, says Haga. But against in October 2016, during heavy rainfall, water flooded half the tunnel floor and froze into blocks of ice. Although the water did, Statsbygg undertook 100 million Norwegian krone $11.7 million of reconstruction work, more than double the original cost of the structure. Pipes containing a coolant were threaded through the soil, and a freezing mat laid on top of the tunnel to help the permafrost stay frozen. Kim Hallman, international director of the Norwegian Polar Institute and a resident of Longyearbyen, has been observing the former coal mining town's changing landscape for over 3 decades. Speaking in February, he said polar cod, which used to swim in the fjord, have disappeared along with the ice on which they depend. Atlantic cod land-bound animals cannot relocate and starving reindeer are now a common sight, says Hallman. During polar bears are also going hungry. They unable to hunt for ring seals on the ice floes. In the past the bears would eke out the warmer months by raiding eggs on the cliffs. But according to the average temperature in Longyearbyen is predicted to rise by 7°C to 10°C, and rainfall by 40% to 65% by the end of the century, depending on the level of global carbon emissions. Perhaps most worrying of all, the thawing permafrost could fuel further global warming. Permafrost. He says it is vital to reduce man-made greenhouse gas emissions to prevent carbon release from happening. Kim Hallman, of the Norwegian Polar Institute, says that Longyearbyen's story is a forewarning for other parts of the world. Assumptions that, in Longyearbyen's case, the avalanches have. But that confidence has been replaced by anxiety. They search for location/city.
Raindrops.